Why do you think so many people struggle to keep the weight off that they lost?
Great topic, by the way, right? I think it's important to preface like so many people talk about how to lose fat, how to lose weight. And one thing that I talk about often on social media and with my content is that most people don't struggle to lose weight. Like if anybody listening to this has struggled with their weight for a while, they've probably successfully lost a certain amount of weight in the past. What people really struggle with is keeping weight off. I don't remember the specific statistic, but I think it's about 95% of people who lose a considerable amount of weight defined as more than 10% of your body weight lost. So somebody weighs, let's say 300 pounds, losing more than 30 pounds, 95% of them regain weight within 5 years, right? So they either regain all the weight or more. So weight regain is really what most people struggle with. And I think it comes down to a couple of things. And I don't want to oversimplify this because it's a very nuanced conversation and we can always poke holes at different arguments and say, well, this factor, that factor. Obviously, there are socioeconomic factors, but I really do think it comes down to one, lack of poor strategy with weight loss, right? Hyperfixation on quick results, quick weight loss, rather than creating sustainable habits and behaviors that help you not only lose weight, but keep it off long term. Because the goal when we try to lose weight and keep it off, it shouldn't necessarily be to go on a diet to help you lose weight. It should be focusing on improving the quality of your overall nutrition in a way that feels sustainable, in a way that you enjoy, that you can continue doing long term, right? So I think lack of proper strategy is one. And two is more of a mindset perspective. People tend to be their own worst enemies, right? A lot of people, when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to fitness, have a very all or nothing mindset. They think that being healthy, being fit means that they have to be super strict and super disciplined and they can't eat certain foods ever. And if they miss a workout, they completely messed up. And essentially, people put more stress on themselves than what's actually necessary. And that leads to burnout, essentially, right? I really do think it comes down to those two main variables.
And so what do you think is like the best strategy then going into it, so that people, once they've like dropped some body fat, they can maintain that same strategy to either keep going, go into maintenance and make sure that their life is still livable, given their health goals?
Yeah. And maybe we can take a quick step back before we even talk about the best strategies and talk about what are the issues with the main approaches that people take, right? Which will then help lay the foundation for what the right strategy should be. Most people who try to lose weight probably go on Google or on social media and they search something like, what's the best diet for weight loss? What's the best exercise plan to lose weight? And unfortunately, most of the information around weight loss tend to be quick fixes, tend to be fad diets, tend to be things that can be marketed and sold. And essentially, the promises that a lot of these weight loss diets or plans promise are over exaggerated because that's what you can market and make money off of, right? So oftentimes, Doug, people will follow really restrictive diets or follow crazy workout plans or spend hundreds of dollars on fat loss supplements that don't really do much. And inherently, many of these methods are destined to fail, right? The analogy I like to use here is like, if I asked you, Doug, like let's say you told me that your goal is to be financially free, right? And I asked you, well, what's your plan to reach financial freedom? And you told me, I'm gonna go to the casino and I'm gonna gamble till I'm till I'm rich, right? Like most people would say that that's not a sound strategy, right? You might get lucky, it might work, but for the vast majority of people, they're gonna end up broke and it's not gonna work, right? And I like this analogy because it's the same thing that people do when it comes to diets. The thing is, like, yeah, you probably know somebody who follows keto and is doing really well and lost all this weight and it feels sustainable for them. You probably know somebody who did a different diet or did a different thing and it works for them. But most fad diets do not work for the vast majority of people for a number of reasons. One, they're overly restrictive, right? Most diets are defined by a strict set of rules around which foods you can eat and which foods you can't eat. And that inherently results in dichotomous thinking around food, right? We think of food as black and white, good or bad. I have to avoid the bad foods at all costs. This is a little bit of what I was alluding to earlier, which results in ton of unnecessary internal stress. And the research is pretty clear on this, that people who approach dieting from a restrictive mindset and really see food dichotomously as good or bad have worse weight loss outcomes long term, right? People who tell themselves they can't eat certain things and they can only stick to the good foods, ironically, have a harder time losing weight and keeping it off. And in addition to that, they have a greater risk of eating disorders as well. Not good, right? So most fad diets are overly restrictive. Another reason is that most of these diets or weight loss plans or whatever it is that people use don't actually cause weight loss, right? Keto doesn't, and I keep going back to keto because it's a really popular one, but the explanation of the rationale that I'm sharing here is applicable to pretty much all of these fad diets, all of these weight loss plans that you see that are really popular online. They don't really cause weight loss, right? For example, when it comes to fad diets, the messaging is that like this unique combination of foods results in weight loss, right? So if it's low carb, you keep your insulin super low. Insulin's what's causing weight gain. That's not necessarily true. There's like all of this messaging. And the truth is that no particular diet inherently causes weight loss. You can lose weight or you can gain weight on any diet, right? You can lose weight on keto. You can gain weight on keto. You can lose weight on Atkins or South Beach or whatever diet, and you can gain weight on those diets as well, because it comes down to the underlying principle of energy balance, calories in, calories out. People on your podcast have probably talked about that a million times, but oftentimes people don't understand that and they think like, hey, simply following this diet helps me lose weight. And that's not necessarily true either, right? Another big reason why a lot of these plans fail long term is because they don't take into account your personal preferences. They're not enjoyable whatsoever. This goes in line with the first point that I mentioned about restriction, but from a slightly different perspective. Like, we don't just eat for sustenance, right? We don't just eat for health. We also eat for enjoyment. Food is a social thing as well. We go out with friends to a restaurant. We enjoy a meal while having a good time with friends and family. And that's an important consideration as well. Because if you tell yourself that you can never eat the foods that you enjoy, well, you're just not going to stick to that diet long term. And if you don't stick to the diet long term, you're not going to maintain your results long term, right? It's kind of like a very logical explanation of like A leads to B leads to C, but people don't think about this. Most people think, well, I'm going to go on a diet to lose weight. And nobody thinks about the diet after the diet. Meaning, what are you going to do with your nutrition when you inherently lose the weight that you're trying to lose, right? You should ideally do so in a way where you could just keep doing the things that you've been doing long term. So if the diet that you're following isn't taking into account your personal preferences, the particular foods you eat due to culture or religion or just the way you grew up, then it's not going to be sustainable long term, right? If you enjoy having pizza with your family on Fridays and the diet you're following says no pizza whatsoever, it's bad, you're just not going to stick to that diet, and then you're going to fall off track and not know what to do. And I would say those are probably some of the big reasons there, right? I would say the last reason, Doug, is because people starve themselves when they try to lose weight. Again, this is not sustainable. A well-balanced diet should help you regulate your hunger and your satiety. Satiety just meaning feeling full. If it doesn't, if you're just slashing your food intake in half, for example, sometimes people don't even follow a particular diet, but they're just going to eat less. And let's say their breakfast is typically, I don't know, a muffin and whatever large frappuccino sugary thing from Starbucks. And now they're like, I'm going on a diet. I'm going to have a small frappuccino and half a muffin. That's not really good because you're going to be super hungry, right? So if you're not regulating your hunger, that's another reason why it may be unsustainable. So I would say, to recap that, 4 main reasons: restrictive nature of many diets. They don't necessarily inherently cause weight loss. So a lot of people sometimes spin their wheels saying like, I'm on keto and I'm not losing weight, right? It's because keto doesn't inherently cause weight loss. They don't take into account your personal preferences. And oftentimes people really starve themselves when they're dieting, which isn't sustainable long term.
I think some people might be listening to this and watching this and saying like, all right, like I get all this. I got to be flexible. I have to be able to adhere to the diet or plan long term. But there's people like myself and others that will say, based on, this is based on my experience, when I followed like a plan, like to the T, like I was happy, I was successful, I saw results, and I allowed some room for flexibility if I wanted to have a slice of pizza on a Friday or pancakes on a Sunday or something. Do you think that given what you just said, people still need to follow some sort of detailed plan so they can not just track what they're doing, but be able to like stay in a rhythm with their habits.
100%. It just comes down to having the right plan, right? I think what people do oftentimes is have the wrong plan. It's like another analogy I like to use here. It's like you're trying to bake a pizza. Let's say pizza is the outcome that you want, lose weight, whatever. But you're following a recipe for another pasta dish. It's like, yeah, they're kind of the same. Like they both have flour, they both have cheese, they're both Italian dishes. But pasta and pizza are fundamentally two different things, right? And following a recipe for making pasta is not going to help you end up with a pizza. And that's what I mean by like, you're following the wrong plan. It's taking you to the wrong place, not necessarily the outcome that you want. So I do think a plan is necessary, Doug. And I think the correct plan, and this is what we really help our clients develop at my coaching company, Fit4Life Academy, is two main things. A solid plan needs to be one, sustainable, right? And we'll talk about how we actually do that. And two, this kind of goes into the piece of sustainability as well, but should aim to help you improve your body composition, not just lose weight. I want to talk about this point first, and then talk about how to create a sustainable plan around nutrition and exercise. Is that cool?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I think one of the big mistakes too, Doug, that I forgot to mention earlier, is that people are hyperfixated on losing weight, right? And this hyperfixation on losing weight is why they do all the restrictive diets, they starve themselves, they do excessive amounts of cardio, the things that I mentioned that are unsustainable, right? The reason why people are attracted to those things is because they are so hyperfixated on losing weight. And what I tell everybody is that weight loss is the wrong goal. Like weight loss is not the correct goal for 99% of people. The correct goal is to do things that help you improve your body composition. Now, weight loss can be a component of improving your body composition, but it should not be the primary goal. What's the difference? Well, when we lose weight, inherently people think they're just losing body fat, right? I want to lose fat, I want to lose weight. People use those two terms interchangeably, and they're not the same thing. Fat is a component of weight, right? So when we lose weight, we lose some fat, also unfortunately lose some muscle tissue as well, and we lose some water, okay? What we want to do is minimize, maybe not lose at all, any muscle mass and maximize how much fat we lose. And in order to do that, it really depends on what methods you use to lose weight, lose fat specifically, right? Because if you restrict yourself a ton, if you starve yourself, if you don't lift weights, if you don't improve your strength through resistance training, you're going to lose more muscle, unfortunately, right? So it's all weight loss is not the same. So what we should be doing is focusing on improving body composition. And body composition is important because muscle is really important for health, but it's also really important for being lean and being able to keep fat off long term, because muscle is one, it's metabolically active, so it helps you burn more calories, right? When people talk about like their metabolism tanking or whatever, like those terms tend to be really exaggerated, but there's some truth to it in the sense that if you lose 20, 30 pounds, if you do it really restrictively and you lose a good amount of muscle mass as well, you're burning way less calories. Your metabolism is slower because you have less muscle, because muscle is important for your metabolism, right? So the goal should be preserving muscle mass, maybe even increasing muscle mass, and maximizing fat loss, right? And I can go into the nuances of like body composition versus weight loss and what things we need to focus on, et cetera. But I think this ties into the other aspect, Doug, which is doing things in a way that's sustainable. Because if we do things in a way that's sustainable and evidence-based, meaning guided by science, we will inherently be doing things that are more beneficial for improving body composition and aren't inherently restrictive, which again results in substantial loss of muscle mass, which is not a good thing, right? So when it comes to sustainability, we want to do a couple things. We'll talk about from the nutritional perspective first. A well-balanced and sustainable diet should do three primary things. One, it should help you meet your nutritional needs, both macronutrients and micronutrient needs, and it should meet your caloric needs as well. So we shouldn't like cut our calories a ton, right? Yes, you need to reduce your calories to drop weight, to reduce body fat, but you don't want to create a massive caloric deficit for two reasons. You're going to feel like you're starving. And two, the quicker you lose weight, the more likely you are to lose more muscle mass, right? So we just want to have a slight caloric reduction. And we want to make sure we're meeting our macronutrient needs, protein, carbs, fiber. If you follow a diet that tells you to cut out any of those three, It's not a good diet. Like, you don't want to cut out carbs completely. You don't want to cut out fats completely. You obviously don't want to cut out protein completely. I feel like the majority of people understand the importance of protein. And you also don't want a diet that is micronutrient deficient as well, right? Vitamins, minerals. In general, any diet that is defined by cutting out an entire food group, for example, don't eat, I don't know, whatever it is, right? Don't eat carbs, don't eat veggies, don't eat fruits because of insulin. That's not good, because if you cut out an entire food group, you are by nature going to be deficient in particular micronutrients that are rich in those specific foods. The research is pretty clear that a nutritionally diverse diet is better for health outcomes, meaning that if you include more foods, more whole foods in particular in your diet, that is a good thing for your health, right? So meat, dairy, nuts, seeds, legumes, fruits, veggies, like, these are all good foods. You shouldn't cut out anything unless you are sensitive or allergic to the particular food, okay? So rule number one, your diet needs to meet your nutritional needs. Two, your diet should help regulate your hunger and your satiety. If your diet makes you feel like you're starving, not a good thing, right? You should feel not full all the time, but you shouldn't feel hungry all the time either. A little bit of hunger is normal when you're trying to lose fat, but you shouldn't feel like you're starving yourself and fighting hunger cues all day, every day. This comes down to, again, not cutting your calories substantially, but focusing on things like whole foods, because whole foods are more satiating, focusing on consuming sufficient protein and fiber, because those nutrients are particularly satiating as well. So your diet should help you regulate your hunger and satiety. And the third important variable is that your diet should be enjoyable. Okay? Like, you should feel like the way you eat is something you enjoy and something that you can do forever. If you're trying to lose weight and keep it off, then you need to keep doing the stuff that you're doing forever, right? Really quick, funny story here that I'll add. It's like, when I mentioned earlier that people don't think about the diet after the diet, or people don't think about like the weight loss plan after the weight loss plan in general. I had a conversation once with my uncle-in-law. He's somebody who's been struggling with his weight for a long time. And I've had a very similar conversation with potential clients as well. And he knows I do this whole health and fitness thing, and I help people lose weight and improve their health. And he's like, hey, Joey, I want to pick your brain on what I'm going to do here. I'm trying to lose weight. This is my plan. I'm not going to drink at all. This is somebody who drinks pretty much daily. So cutting out alcohol, sure, good. But going cold turkey is also difficult, right? And he says, this is also somebody who doesn't exercise at all, Doug. He says, I'm going to start doing Orange Theory twice daily, every day. And I was like, that's pretty intense, right? And instead of telling him like, hey, don't do that, my like natural response was like, cool. Like, how long do you think you're going to do that for? And he goes, until I lose the 50 pounds. And I was like, all right. And when you lose the 50 pounds, what are you going to do? And he starts cracking up and he's like, I'm just going to stop doing it. And I was like, dude, that's the wrong approach, right? You're going like 100 miles per hour for a short period of time, where it's probably a lot better to go 50 or 60 miles per hour for a long period of time, right? Sure, results might take a little bit longer, but they're going to be more sustainable. So that's the general mindset that I try to help people develop. So again, when it comes to diet, meeting nutritional needs, and I'll talk about how to do this in a systematic way as well. Meeting nutritional needs, help regulate hunger and satiety, should be enjoyable. On the exercise side, in general, more exercise is better. Now, I say in general because most of us have families, we have responsibilities, we have a full-time job. We can't spend 6 days a week for 2 hours at the gym, right? I used to do that. Now I have 2 kids and I can't do that anymore. Man, do I miss going to the gym 6 times a week. But in general, when it comes to exercise, we really want to train in a way that helps us optimize muscle mass. Okay, so this means not spending hours doing cardio every week. It really means learning how to train correctly in the gym, learning how to lift weights, learning about things like progressive overload and range of motion and exercise selection, optimizing your training to help you build muscle specifically for the reasons that I outlined earlier, right? Having more muscle, great for your metabolic rate. Having more muscle allows you to eat more food and stay lean. Having more muscle is also fantastic for health. It's associated with a reduced risk of all sorts of chronic diseases, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, age-related cognitive decline, osteoporosis, sarcopenia, like the list goes on. All age-related chronic diseases, you can improve your risk of not developing those diseases by having more muscle mass and having more strength. Not to mention, it's also easier to stay leaner when you have more muscle, because being lean is really the proportion of body fat to muscle mass. It's your body fat percentage. And if you have more muscle, by nature, you can carry a little bit more fat and stay lean as well. So that's my general approach when it comes to nutrition and exercise and what's necessary to help improve body composition and do so in a way that feels sustainable.
And so if somebody is listening to this and they're like, all right, like let's get specific, where do I begin? Let's just say somebody has, a solid like 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds they'd like to lose and then keep it off. What's step one? And then walk the audience through like how they, like from a nutrition standpoint, from an exercise standpoint, like exactly how you would walk one of your clients through if they were working with you for the next like 6 months or so.
Great question. And I'll start off by saying that like I'm a big proponent of investing in developing skills, right? Because we really have two resources, time and money, right? And I am a big proponent of this, like in most areas of my life where I want to develop a skill, I invest in people who have done the thing, who can help me get there a little bit quicker, right? Like business, with social media, I've always hired people to help me with these things. And I bring this up because a health and fitness coach can be a wonderful thing if it's something that's within your budget and you can afford, obviously, because they can help guide you in the right direction and expedite results, right? You can do these things on your own, but there's going to be a lot of trial and error. You probably have been trying these things on your own for quite some time already. But in general, if I were to say where should most people start, it really comes down to exercise first and foremost. If you're not currently exercising, that's where I think the vast majority of people should start. And it doesn't need to be something complicated. Just learning how to lift some basic weights and go into the gym 2 or 3 times a week. That's a fantastic starting point, because you're not going to do much to improve your body composition just from a nutritional perspective, right? So first and foremost, start exercising regularly, start lifting some weights, start focusing on getting a little bit stronger, building a little bit of muscle. Now, once you get into the habit of exercising regularly, then I think we can focus a little bit more on the nutrition and lifestyle side of things as well. I didn't mention anything about lifestyle, but things like sleep and stress management are incredibly important for improving health and body composition too. And I keep using the term health and body composition, and I know that we're specifically talking about keeping weight off, keeping fat off long term. Those two things go hand in hand, okay? So everything I'm sharing here is to help you not just lose weight, but keep it off long term. So at Fit4Life Academy, Doug, we take a very, what we call habit-focused approach, where we focus on specific behaviors rather than telling people, eat this, don't eat that, okay? And what we focus on is developing a healthy foundation around nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle over the first 8 to 12 weeks that we work with a client. What does this mean? So we've identified a host of specific nutrition and lifestyle related habits, and I can share what those are here so that people focus on those. And then we help clients develop them in a very systematic way, meaning one at a time, okay? So when it comes to nutrition and lifestyle, we focus on things like having a regular meal schedule, okay? Research clearly shows that people who eat at regular times every single day have better body composition outcomes. They also have better hunger and satiety regulation. This probably comes down to two things. Having a normal rhythm of when we eat from day to day helps regulate your hunger cues. So some physiological benefits. But also if you eat at the same times every day, it probably means that you put some focus and emphasis on nutrition. You're probably preparing ahead of time as well. So you have some healthy meals to focus on, right? Versus like, it's noon, it's lunch, I have nothing prepared. Let me go grab some McDonald's or whatever, right? So having a regular meal time, focusing on consuming adequate protein, focusing on consuming adequate fiber, having a daily fruit and vegetable target, making sure that we start our day off with a well-balanced breakfast, limiting food late in the afternoon, having a daily step goal, having a sleep routine, right? These are all behaviors that, if developed correctly, will help you improve your body composition, will help you keep weight off. And what we do with clients is work on one of those every single week over the duration of 8 to 12 weeks. So we help clients first develop a meal schedule that fits their particular schedule. And this is what I was talking about earlier with a habit-focused approach rather than telling people exactly what to do. It's like, it does not matter, Doug, if you want to eat 2 times a day, 3 times a day, 4 times a day, if you want to have 3 meals and a snack, like whatever your structure is, that's fine. We just want to have a structure that fits your lifestyle that you can stick to, right? When it comes to protein, we focus on the habit of consuming sufficient protein, but we don't tell clients you have to eat 8 ounces of this type of meat and this protein supplement, because again, meeting these habits, you should meet these habits with your personal preferences, right? If you like eating chicken and you don't like eating beef, then you can hit your protein goals eating chicken. If you're a vegetarian, then you can have vegetarian protein sources to meet the protein goal. This is what I mean by focusing on the habits or the behaviors, not necessarily following a strict plan, although following the habits themselves is a plan, right? So I think the best approach is focusing on one thing at a time, really developing the behavior appropriately. And once that habit becomes habitual, right? Once the behavior becomes habitual, meaning it feels easy and it doesn't feel like it requires a ton of effort and time, then focus on the next thing. Why am I a fan of this approach? Because research also clearly shows, Doug, when you try to tackle too many things at once, nothing sticks, right? If you try to focus on your protein and your fiber and a daily step goal and working out 5 times a week, and you're not doing any of that, it's going to be really hard to do all of those things at once. Yes, in theory, will doing all of those things at once result in faster progress? Yeah, but it's probably not going to result in sustainable progress. And I think it's much better. This is where the mindset piece comes into place as well. Understanding that slow progress is, in most cases, a more sustainable approach, and being okay with making progress a little bit slower, knowing that the things that you are developing, the habits that you're developing, are going to stick with you for a lifetime. And that's really how you lose weight and keep it off for the rest of your life.
Being somebody that's lost over 50 pounds myself, and I've also been a trainer for 15 years, I've seen both sides of it. And I think what you're saying is right. And it's something that I've tried to implement with my clients as well. However, I do think that there's a nature of instant gratification that has to be felt for people at the beginning to feel like they're on the right track. And typically that comes by way of seeing a drastic difference either in the mirror, on the scale, maybe it's something strength related, but most cases people want to see their body changing. What advice do you have, or how do you help your clients feel good about their progress while also like being focused on the long-term journey?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. First and foremost, me saying that a slower approach is better doesn't mean that like you're not going to see changes in the mirror and you're not going to see changes on the scale, right? I would actually argue that this approach is better for seeing changes in the mirror long term specifically, right? Because if you're focusing on building muscle, you're going to really start seeing more muscle definition. You're going to start looking a little bit leaner. So you'll probably see changes in the mirror faster than you'd see changes in the scale due to the nature of focusing on improving body composition, right? Now, that said, one big thing that we do as coaches is helping people understand that wins are not just defined by the number on the scale, right? First and foremost, I think, Doug, people have a really unrealistic expectation of what a good rate of weight loss is, right? Because whenever we first start working with a client, maybe it's somebody who's been yo-yo dieting for years and they've lost 50 pounds more than once, right? And I see this all the time. We actually just had our kickoff call for our like a challenge that we run quarterly last night. And a couple of people were like, I'm here because I've lost 40 or 50 pounds more than 5 times and I always just put it back on. And they're like, yeah, dude, right? It's tough. It's like a yearly cyclical thing, right? The new year comes, they get really strict, they cut everything out, they lose 50 pounds, holidays come back, everything goes to shit, they regain the weight. This happens for years and years and years. And they're like, we're here because we really like your message about following a more sustainable approach and developing healthy behaviors. And hopefully this time I can lose the 40, 50 pounds. It might take a little bit longer, but hopefully I can keep it off, right? So it's helping people also reframe the way they're seeing success and progress. And I bring this up because we've had experiences quite frequently where we start working with a client and over the course of a month, they're down 5 pounds. And they're upset that they're only down 5 pounds. They feel like they should be losing like 5 pounds a week. And I think this expectation of losing 5 pounds a week or so comes from all the bullshit marketing around weight loss that there is online, right? There's all these programs of lose 30 pounds in 30 days, lose 21 pounds in 21 days. It's bullshit. For all of you guys listening, like anything that promotes quick weight loss, that sounds too good to be true. It's too good to be true. A very realistic and sustainable rate of weight loss is 1 to 2 pounds a week. And if you have 50, 60, maybe even 100 pounds to lose, you're like, man, that's going to take a long time. Yeah, it's going to take a long time. It took a long time to put on the 50 pounds. It's not going to come off overnight, right? So helping reframe or reset expectations is really important But then we really help highlight non-scale wins. For example, if this person who a month in has quote unquote only lost 5 pounds, we ask them things like, well, how do you feel on the nutrition plan that you're following now compared to the diet that you were following before? They're like, well, I feel a lot better because like it's not super restrictive and I actually enjoy this and I feel like I can keep doing this. I'm like, well, that's a win, right? Like that's a subjective win, but you're essentially developing a plan that you enjoy. So if you've already lost 5 pounds and you're telling me you can stick to this for the rest of your life, well, imagine 10 months down the road, you'll probably be down 50 pounds and you'll be able to keep that off. That feels good, right? Yeah, that feels good. Tell me about your workouts. How are you feeling there? Well, I'm feeling like I have more energy. I'm stronger. It's really cool now that I could pick up a 50-pound dumbbell. This is one thing one of our clients shared the other day. She was like, she's really into gardening. And she was like, I used to really struggle picking like up the big bags of dirt that I think are like 40 or 50 pounds and putting them in the trunk of my car and then unloading them. And she's like, I could do it now pretty easily. Like I'm not even out of breath. And I'm like, that's a huge win, right? So it's really helping clients, Doug, change their mindset and not be so hyper fixated on just the number on the scale and realizing that health and fitness goes so much more beyond just what you weigh, and that those wins are just as important, if not more important and more enjoyable than just losing weight. And the ironic part is that when you are able to develop that mindset, you enjoy everything you're doing more. And as a byproduct, you actually see better results and see faster weight loss and you're able to keep it off. I just think it's a much healthier and smarter approach to weight loss.
You're absolutely right. And I think that you have to be able to stick to the plan like long term in order for it to work. Because again, like I think what also happens that's overlooked is the mental health toll that failing on a diet takes on you. You start to develop this failure mindset. You start to think that health is against you. You start to feel defeated, all these things. So you really have to follow something that's sustainable. I think about like somebody who's busy and they're committed to transforming their health. They're gonna do what you tell them to do. You tell them to work out 4 days a week, they're gonna do that. You tell them to eat their protein, they're gonna do that. I'm sure you've worked with the type. What's the framework you would give to somebody if I was coming to you and be like, dude, I'm busy. I'll eat what I'll do whatever you tell me to do. I trust you. Like I'm paying you just to like write up a plan for me. Generically, what are some of the non-negotiables you would prescribe that person if they're like, I want to lose the fat, keep it off, but I don't want to like think about like what the best foods are for me necessarily?
Yeah, I tell them that they need to think about this because the thing is like, somebody's not going to tell you what to do the rest of your life. You're not going to be able to follow a plan for the rest of your life. Like, so I would have a conversation around that at first, right? And we don't prescribe specific meal plans to people because that just doesn't work long term. We do give our clients ideas for meals, recipes, etc. Now, in terms of specific recommendations, what I would say, like, these are the non-negotiables that you should meet every day in terms of objective recommendations. Well, I think at least 80 to 85% of your diet should be coming from whole foods, right? So limiting highly processed foods, consuming at least 0.8 grams of protein per pound of ideal body weight. To put that into perspective, I weigh roughly 210 pounds. That's around 170 to 180 grams of protein on the low end. You could easily do that with, 16 ounces of a main protein source. That's probably going to get you close to around 100 grams. You could just double that, but that's a lot of meat consumption. But if you want to do some like Greek yogurt, some protein supplementation, some eggs on top of that, easy way to get to the protein target there. I generally recommend, if we're going to talk about really practical recommendations, when it comes to what your plate should look like, having 3 solid meals throughout the day, making sure you have like a fistful of protein at each of those meals, a fistful of veggies, and then a fistful of some sort of complex carbohydrates would be a very simple recommendation. When it comes to fiber, focusing on getting 25 to 30 grams per day, and try to aim for 3 to 5 servings of fruits and veggies per day. I would say that's the like bare minimum, super simple recommendation. 0.8 grams of protein per pound of ideal body weight, 25 to 30 grams of fiber, 3 to 5 servings of fruits and veggies, and 80 to 85% of your diet coming from whole foods.
This episode is brought to you by Timeline Nutrition. Listen, my main goals for the remainder of the year revolve around health and vitality. After hearing about Timeline Nutrition from several of my friends in the health industry, I decided to give their flagship product, MitoPure, a try. MitoPure contains urolithin A, which is a powerful postbiotic that can be challenging to get from your diet. As you know, science has been a big focus on the podcast, so I was really impressed that Timeline has done 10 years of research to bring this product to market. I've been taking their berry powder for over a month now, and I've already noticed a bit of a difference in the gym. Some of the long-term benefits I'm hoping to achieve from taking it include improved energy, muscle strength, and endurance, which are right in line with my goals. So I highly recommend you check out Timeline Nutrition, and they are now offering 10% off your first order of MitoPure. So just go to timeline.com/Doug to get 10% off your first order of MitoPure. That's TIMELINE.com/Doug. Now back to the show. And then for the same person that, again, we've talked about how to make fat loss easier long term, how to optimize your metabolism to keep it like going. That person also should focus on building and retaining as much muscle mass as possible. We talked about this in our last conversation, but I think it would be good to kind of rehash this a little bit. Like if your goal is really to preserve muscle mass and even build muscle while you're on a fat loss goal, you have to be like getting after it at the gym. It's not as simple as just going in and just doing like 10 sets or 10 reps on a machine, moving on to the next thing without like any sort of plan. This is something I know you've been excited to talk about recently because you're like, you know what, this is the thing that people sometimes miss. What should people be doing in the gym?
Oh man, this one I would really encourage hiring a professional to learn, because learning to train correctly is a skill, and done on your own takes years because you have to like watch content, implement this, implement that, right? But in general, listen, I would assume most of your audiences are probably like busy professionals, people that can't spend all day, every day at the gym, right? You can get you can improve muscle mass substantially by training, I would say 2 or 3 times a week, but ideally at least 3 times a week, right? We want to focus. I'll give you some general recommendations, but for those of you guys listening, if you want to learn more about this, I'm sure Doug, you'll share it in the description, but we have a free ebook that we share on this stuff that goes a little bit more granular into these variables. But obviously, okay, making sure we're resistance training. Number one, lifting weights, right? Pretty basic. If you're just training about 3 times a week, I would focus on full body workouts and focus on big compound movements. Compound movement being an exercise that works multiple joints. So a squat versus a leg extension, right? The squat is going to help you build more muscle overall because it's working more muscle groups. Compound movements aren't inherently better than isolation movements like leg extension. It's just like if you have limited time and you want to get the most bang for your buck, focus on compound movements. I would focus, let's say if you're training 3 times per week, which I am right now, and you're doing full body workouts, I would do one big compound movement for each major muscle group. So something like a squat for the quads and the glutes, something like some sort of deadlift or a hip hinge for the hamstrings and the low back, some sort of pull, like a pull up or a row. It could literally be any variation, and some sort of press. And I would choose one exercise for all 4 of those 3 times a week, right? You can do a different one every time. So that nails like frequency, what your workout split looks like, what sort of exercises you should be doing. Beyond that, I would encourage you to do at least 10 sets or so, 8 to 10 sets per muscle group per week. So let's say, you're training 3 times a week, you have one exercise for each of those. That means do 3 or 4 sets of that exercise. Be close to failure. This one is the one that takes a long time to learn how to do, because people think that simply because it hurts or it burns means that it was an effective set. That's not true at all, right? You want to get to the point where failure means that even if you wanted to, you could not do another rep at all, right? I want to do another rep of squats, but I cannot because my muscles are failing. You want to get close to muscular failure. The research clearly shows that if you are 2 to 3 reps shy of failure, that's going to be optimal for muscle growth. So we really want to be pushing the intensity. We want to make sure that we're also resting sufficiently between sets. I bring this up, like if you rest a minute between a set and you're ready to go for the next set, you're not training intensely enough. You're not really pushing the proximity to failure. Because if you push near failure on a big compound movements, you're gassed for like 3 minutes, right? So if your body isn't asking you for at least 3 minutes, that's a really good indicator that you're not training hard enough. Also, other important variables, Doug, is like how you actually train. What does your technique look like, right? We want to make sure that we're training with a full range of motion. We want to make sure we're training with a good tempo. So going down nice and slow, pausing where the muscles are stretched. There's really a lot to it, but I would say those are some of the basic fundamentals that people should be focusing on. And the difficult part about talking about training, Doug, compared to nutrition, is that a lot of it is visual, right? So teaching somebody what good technique is, or good range of motion, or good intensity, it's hard to really have a good conceptual understanding of what those variables mean unless you already have a pretty good understanding of resistance training, because you can kind of picture it in your mind. But seeing these things visually is a lot, I think, more helpful.
So you mentioned like the 3-minute rest period between sets, and you talked about compound movements, and I'm a big fan of those as well. But I also think that, people could also benefit from, if it works for them and they can fit in their schedule, like splits. I mean, I've done a similar split for a long time, push pull legs, or I've done like one muscle group and just like really hammered it when I was like in my meathead days. And I bring that up because, like, isn't there a difference? And I'm asking you as a professional, like, isn't there a difference between hypertrophy, building muscle, and strength? Because from what I understand, rest periods for hypertrophy are different than strength. Like hypertrophy, I mean, it's been a while since I've looked at the literature on this, but at one point I think it was like 45 seconds to like maybe a minute and a half. Strength was more like 2 to 4 minutes, I believe, between sets.
Yeah, they're not necessarily different things in the sense that like you can optimize one or the other a little bit more, right? But in general, if you're getting stronger, you're building muscle, and if you're building muscle, you're getting stronger. Like they go hand in, right? The difference between rest periods, this is getting into like the nitty gritty of it. You can hypertrophy a muscle with shorter rest periods, but it would require more total work to get optimal hypertrophy. For example, if you just do 3 sets, right, and you rest a minute, you're going to grow less than if you do 3 sets and rest 3 minutes, because performance is the number one indicator of progress, right? And if you rest more, you're going to perform better on each individual set because you're better recovered. So let's say you do 10 reps on your first set. If you rest a minute, you might only be able to do 7 on your second set. And then you rest another minute, you might only be able to do 5 on your third set, right? So that was 10, 7, 5, 22 total reps. If you rest 3 minutes, it might look a little bit more like this. You get 10 on your first set, you get 9 on your second set, you get 8 on your third set. Overall, you did more work, you did more reps, so that longer rest is going to be better, right? Now, obviously, if you rest less, you have more time. So if you did 3 sets with 3-minute rest, you might be able to do 5 sets with 1-minute rest, and the total growth there might be relatively equivalent. Whatever your rest period is, standardize it. That's generally what I tell people. But the longer rest periods, if total work is equated, total number of sets, is always going to result in better growth and strength. Now, other differences between strength and muscle growth comes down to like the load that's being used, the proximity to failure, how many total sets you do, but like that would be getting way into the weeds of it. In general, strength training is hypertrophy training and vice versa for the vast majority of people. You also brought up the concept of splits, right? All workout splits work. Like 3 times a week full body, 4 times a week upper lower, 5 times a week, whatever, like it all works. What I would encourage people to do is, if you care about making optimal progress, is the one split I would not recommend is a bro split where you only work each muscle once a week. Because the research also clearly shows that training a muscle twice a week or more is better than just training it once a week. So for example, I mentioned doing 10 sets per week on average for a muscle. If you have a chest day and you do 10 sets for your chest on Monday, and then you don't train your chest again till the next Monday, that's not optimal. It would be way better to split up your chest training into like Monday and Thursday and just do 5 sets for each. And that doesn't mean that you have to go to the gym twice as many days. It just means you can like switch up what your split looks like, right? Because this was a question that I got asked recently. Somebody was like, I do push-pull legs and I go to the gym 3 times a week. If I want to train everything twice a week, does that mean I have to go to the gym 6 times per week? It's like, no, just take the total volume that you're doing throughout those 3 days, because they were doing push Monday, pull Wednesday, legs Friday, and maybe do like half of your push and half of your legs on Monday, right? And then you get what I'm saying. Spreading out the volume evenly throughout the week is really what's necessary.
Bro, there's nothing better than a pump on arm day, though.
It really is the best feeling, huh?
Dude, it's a great feeling.
Banging out some bicep curls, some tricep extensions, feeling like you're freaking Arnold in the gym.
A lot of people go through that phase, right? Where you train for physique and vanity, and then eventually you're like, okay, physique and vanity is still important, but how do I dial it down in the sake of health, longevity? You know what I mean? Just making sure that I can do this in a sustainable way.
Well, I don't think they're different, Doug, because when you're talking about training for physique or vanity, like doing an arm day is not optimal for physique and vanity. It's not, right? Like spreading out that volume for multiple times throughout the week. It's like, yeah, you're not going to get the best pump during that one workout in the gym, but you're going to get better long-term growth. So I don't want people to think like I'm negating like the physique benefits here. Like this is the way you train to optimize your physique too.
Yeah. No, I was just being funny. That's all.
I know. Especially like if you do an arm day and then the next day you have to train some upper body stuff, it's like you're not going to be able to perform that well because you gassed out your arms, right? So how you structure things is also important.
Yeah. I used to always say I'm going to the arm farm.
I like that. I haven't heard of that before. The arm.
So getting back to I guess our broader theme of the combo, let's just say somebody is on the path of weight loss. They're losing weight, fat, but not as much as they want. They maybe have plateaued a bit. I'm sure you've seen this a lot. Like, what are some things that, I mean, other than understanding that plateaus happen, I think people in my audience, your audience, they understand that by now. What can people do to either adjust or look at where they need to make some changes?
Yeah. And just a quick question to be able to answer this question is like, how are you defining a plateau in this context?
So I think that the plateau is in their physical results that people, either external results.
Yeah. But I mean, like, are you talking about like, hey, we're talking about weight loss, not losing any weight at all, or not seeing improvements in the gym?
They've been losing a bunch of weight. They're on the path. And then all of a sudden they plateau. They're not losing any weight.
Okay. So if we're talking about weight loss specifically, and it's important to define a plateau because it's different for different outcomes, right? But like some people say, I've plateaued. And then I asked them like, hold up, you haven't lost any weight at all? And they're like, no. And I was like, so you're telling me 2 months ago, you were the exact same weight you are now? And they're like, no, well, I've lost like 5 pounds in the past 2 months. I'm like, okay, so you haven't plateaued. Your progress has just slowed down. And I think it's also important to understand that the longer you're in this game, like progress slows down, right? You always make the fastest progress when you are a complete beginner at something. And it's natural for progress to slow down over time. What I would say though is if you've actually plateaued or weight loss progress feels super, super slow. And the way that I would define that is like if your weight has not moved at all in like 3 or 4 weeks, right? And when I say not, this is another important caveat here. It's like, I'm not talking about like day to day, because day to day, you're not going to see your weight move, right? Another thing is like people want to see weight loss every single day, and then the weight goes up the next day and they think they've gained the pound. It's just like, there are differences in like how much food you have in your intestines, how much water your body's retaining that affects your body weight day to day. What we always do with clients is look at your weight average for the week. So look at your weekly average, right? Weigh yourself from Monday to Sunday, and then look at the average and compare the average from week to week. That's how you really know if you're making progress or not. And if that average is moving in the right direction by a pound or so, or a pound or two per week, then you're making really good progress. And I say a pound or two, but for people who don't have a ton of weight to lose, let's say 10, 15, maybe even 20 pounds, losing between half a pound to a pound a week is really good progress, right? But let's say you're not even losing that. What do you do from there? Well, I'm a really, really big fan of measuring stuff. You can't measure or assess the effectiveness of a plan if you're not tracking metrics related to that plan, right? So I always encourage clients to, 1, track their workouts, 2, track your steps, track your protein, track your calories. If you've never ever tracked calories, I encourage you to spend some time diligently tracking calories and learning about energy balance and how many calories different foods have. Because it really is as simple as if your weight loss progress slows down, you can do one of two things. You can increase your physical activity or you can decrease your caloric intake, right? So if you're not losing any weight and you've been eating, let's say 2,000 calories or 2,500 calories, drop your calories by 200 to 300 and then stick to that for another 3 or 4 weeks. Your weight should start dropping, right? If your physical activity is pretty low, look at what your daily step count is and try to increase your daily step count by 500 to 1,000 steps. I can't tell you, man, how many times people have come to us saying they're plateaued and we track their calories, we track their steps. All we do is decrease their calories by like 150 to 200 calories and then increase their daily step count by like 1,000 steps. And they start losing weight pretty quickly, right? So you don't have to make drastic changes to what you're doing, just small changes to your caloric intake and to your energy expenditure.
Is there anything else we haven't covered that you think is important for people to understand if they want to keep weight off long term?
Man, the mindset piece is really important. This is a hard part to even like, I'll say this, when clients come to us, they usually feel like they need a better nutrition and exercise plan, and that is part of it. But they don't realize how much they benefit from the coaching relationship in terms of helping them improve their mindset and mental lens in terms of like their overall relationship with food and exercise, right? Because the truth is, guys, you can start working on some of the things that I share here, but you're going to experience different challenges. You're going to experience different setbacks. You might go on vacation and not know how to handle your nutrition and feel like you're going to fall completely off track. You might, be under stress at work and not be able to go to the gym as much. And essentially, all these things are going to affect your mindset, right? They're going to affect the way you feel about yourself, your relationship with food, and like having a professional who you're sharing these things with and getting guidance in terms of how to view these different situations and how to navigate them successfully really does help with the long-term adherence. So I would say mindset is the missing piece, Doug, for the long-term consistency piece that goes outside of like objective recommendations around nutrition and exercise.
And what are some of the mindset hacks you think are important for people to like kind of master on this path?
I'm not a big fan of hacks, man.
Or tips? I mean, I think like, so I guess what I mean, I don't mean it in a short.
No, I know. The importance of flexibility. The thing is, it's easy to say what needs to be done. It's harder to actually develop it. And I think the best way to develop these mindset related hacks or tips
There
is
we go. I got Joey to say hacks. There we go.
by going through situations where you actually are struggling, right? Like, Doug, it's the same as like if somebody's dealing with depression or stress or anxiety or whatever it is, and someone's like, hey, like, just look at everything you have going for you. Like, life is actually really good. It's like, yeah, in theory, like we want to appreciate the things that are going well and like that will help us feel happier and stuff. But in practice, it's a lot more difficult. And that's why people benefit from therapy, right? And the benefit of therapy, Doug, and maybe a lot of listeners can relate to this, is not even so much the therapist telling you what to do or what not to do. It's you being able to express the way you're feeling on a regular basis, because it's not a one and done thing, right? And having a professional helping you reframe the way you're thinking about things slowly over time, right? The same thing applies to the health and fitness thing. We're definitely like, as coaches, we're not therapists by any means, but we understand the mental frameworks that are necessary to develop a healthy and sustainable approach to health and fitness, right? So it's like, hey, you are going through difficult situations. Share with us what you're struggling with. Share with us what you're thinking. How is this affecting the way you eat? How is this affecting your consistency? How is this affecting your motivation? And then we talk about those things and help you change the way that you're viewing and relating to the situation. So it's not necessarily a particular tip, right? It's like, it's tough. It's a tough one to address by saying like, these are tips, because it's not really super implementable, if that makes sense.
I mean, I think the biggest ones that people like really need to, in my opinion, master. Number one, well, here's the first one, is I think you have to show up even if you're not feeling 100%. I think so many times like people think that, oh my gosh, I'm tired, I don't feel good. And there's times where if you're like chronically like fatigued, you shouldn't go to the gym and do a tough workout. However, generally speaking, if you're just feeling a little tired, I do think that you still should make an effort to get some exercise in, right? You shouldn't make that an excuse to like just say, you know what, I'll get back on it tomorrow, because the fact of the matter is life happens and life's going to be tough. I think that's one. The other one, and I'll punt it back to you after this, is like, what do you do when you mess up? You know what I mean? It's like, how do you focus on the next right thing, the next right meal? It's like, okay, you go out and you eat, fast food that's not on your quote unquote plan and you feel like crap, afterwards. I mean, I think there is a physical, like for me, if I went out and ate fast food right now, it would go right through me. I can tell you that right now. You know what I mean? So I think there is an element to that. If people talk about like fast, processed foods not being, being good or bad, I think that there's a physical component to it if you've eaten healthy for so long. But nonetheless, it's like, how do you get back on the saddle after you eat a bad meal? That's the other one. So, I mean, I would love to hear your thoughts from there.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if we talk about what sort of mindsets should be developed, I've thought about this a lot, right? And essentially with our framework, we've come up with what we call a success-oriented mindset. And it has three big components. One, it's important to develop what's called a growth mindset, right? Which is it's essentially the idea of being a lifelong student, right? Listen, when it comes to health and fitness, there are things that are going to be challenging. There are things that you don't know. There are things that you have to learn. You're going to screw up. Part of developing a growth mindset is understanding that those things are part of the process, and adopting the mindset that I'm a student, I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow. Messing up doesn't mean that I've ruined everything. I get to learn from these challenges. I get to learn from these screw ups. And that way, you're always growing and improving. Because if you see your screw ups as an opportunity to learn and grow, then you're always going to be learning and growing. So developing a growth mindset, right? So like, this is what should be done. How to do it is the more difficult part, where I think ongoing conversations is what's really beneficial. and the guidance. But okay, so growth mindset. 2, I think it's important to develop what I call a process-oriented mindset, which means that you don't just focus on the outcome being losing weight, building muscle, whatever it is, but your daily focus is on the process, on the habits and behaviors that you should be focusing on every day, right? Because if you step on the scale and you haven't lost weight, for a lot of people, that's all they care about. It's like, oh man, I didn't lose weight. Being process oriented means despite not losing weight, you ask yourself, am I focusing on my habits? Did I get my steps in? Did I prioritize my sleep? Did I get my protein in? Did I get my 3 solid meals? If you are sticking to the plan, then the progress will follow, right? So it's essentially trusting the process. And the third aspect that I think is really important is developing the habit of celebrating small wins along the way. As humans, we tend to naturally gravitate toward comfort and away from discomfort. And the goal is to learn how to make things that are uncomfortable more comfortable. In general, if you celebrate the wins, you will build more positive associations with the thing that you're trying to do, and it'll naturally stick more because you actually enjoy doing it more. I have a good friend, David Roden. He's lost over 200 pounds and has been able to keep his weight loss off for over 10 years. I had him on my podcast and I was like, dude, what was like the one thing that really helped you with the consistency piece? He was like, dude, as silly as it sounds, I celebrated every small win. He was in college when he was losing weight. He was like, I would go to the food hall and my buddies would be eating pizza and I would get a healthy meal. And I would literally stand up and high five myself and say, good job, and celebrate the small win for having a healthy meal. So celebrating every small win along the way and really highlighting the progress that you're making and not hyperfixating just on the negative, like I didn't lose weight or I did something bad, is really helpful for, again, building positive associations with this whole health and fitness thing and enjoying the process a lot more.
Joey, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. I think the listeners and my audience can get a lot of value out of this.
Appreciate you, man. It's always a pleasure to catch up.
Likewise, man.